Elysera Velmari awoke to white light and silence. The last thing she remembered was the fire, the explosion, the betrayal. She was alone in a sterile hospital bed on a moon she had never seen before. The air felt strange, the silence too clean. This wasn't Velmara. This was Otherin, a faraway planet of 11 moons her mother taught her about. The psychic had hidden her well. They failed to realize that Elysera wasn't just any girl. She remembered everything they thought they had psyched her into forgetting. They tried to erase her past, her bloodline, her pain. But Elysera was something of a psychic herself, one whose mind no other psychic could touch. Not even the elders, not even the seers, not even they know what she truly is. And then came a girl. She was also 12. She was kind, sweet, confused. She said her name was Isabella Vastra, and she'd been in an accident that stole her memories. They called her the lost girl of Otherin, but she smiled like someone who had nothing left to lose. In that moment, Elysera had an idea. A dangerous, brilliant idea. If she couldn't hide herself, what if she became someone else? She sat with Isabella Vastra in the garden under the 11 moons and told her a story. A story that wasn't true, but felt real enough to become truth. "Your real name," she whispered, "is Elysera Velmari. You were adopted by the Yolans to hide you from your father's enemies. Lord Velmari, he's the one who sent me to find you. I'm just a friend. My name is..." She paused to think. Isabella Vastra. Your adopted parents don't even know this truth. They weren't informed to keep them safe. You don't have to tell them, but know who you really are today. Then she placed the pendant in her trembling hand. The Velmari necklace, a symbol of royal bloodline and power. "This is why they sent me, to give you this heirloom. It belonged to your true father. Don't show this to anybody. It is your key back to your father's house." Isabella Vastra cried. She didn't know why, but something in the lie felt like a memory she forgot. And just like that, Elysera disappeared into her disguise. She became Isabella Vastra. The forgotten heiress had made herself forgettable. But the necklace still pulsed with ancient power, and it was only a matter of time before someone came looking for the wrong girl. When Elysera Velmari transferred her identity to the amnesiac Isabella Vastra, she did more than trick the psychics. She erased herself. The elder psychic had underestimated her. No one psyches a psychic. On an expedition to Earth, she approached the soldiers. Calmly, she told the captain she had missed her original transport and that her parents were likely already waiting for her. Her voice was steady, convincing. She said she'd accidentally left her boarding pass in their luggage. They didn't question it. They let her on. Some people are born with a gift. Hers was never loud. It was quiet, persuasive, almost untraceable. When Isabella Vastra, once Elysera Velmari, stepped onto Earth, she didn't expect to bleed. She stepped onto Earth expecting anonymity. Instead, she was robbed within minutes. One man bumped into her. Another snatched her small bag. The third disappeared into the crowd before she could scream. She stood on the sidewalk of New York, breathless. No necklace, no money, no identity, no help. "So this is Earth," she muttered. The New York sky was cold, and the air bit with indifference. She had barely walked 2 blocks when it happened. She didn't cry, but she stood still. In the middle of Manhattan chaos, with eyes wide and empty pockets. Isabella Vastra, the girl who once rewrote fate, was now just another street kid. She walked for hours, lost, cold, and invisible. Then came the smell, hot oil, spices, and bread. A small diner beckoned. She entered, shivering, and walked up to the counter. "I don't have money," she said, "but I can wash plates." "Very well." They laughed, but the manager, a tired, middle-aged man, gave her a shot. By nightfall, she had scrubbed so well that the steel in the kitchen shone like mirrors. They hired her. He gave her a corner to sleep in, and a new life began. She became a ghost in the kitchen, quiet, flawless, invisible. 8 months later, she became the best worker they ever had. She was never late, never tired, and always perfect. But perfection breeds enemies. The other girls hated her. Jealousy fermented, twisted into cruelty. They hated how the customers praised her, how the boss trusted her. So, they set her up. Isabella had only stepped out for a moment. She was in the dining, covering for another staff who begged for a favor, swore it would be quick. She wiped her hands, hurried back to the kitchen, but something felt off. The front door closed, and a voice pierced the room. "My wallet, it's gone!" The customer's hands shook, eyes wide with panic. Bags were dumped, chairs scraped. Accusations leapt from lips like knives. Attention sliced through the air, fast, sudden, irreversible. Nothing had gone missing in months. The staff knew it, the manager knew it, but this time, she had been the one out of sight. For 2 minutes, maybe less, all eyes turned to her. Isabella stood behind the counter, still. The color drained from her face, not confused, betrayed. The manager didn't question, just gave a small, decisive nod. Security moved in. She didn't run, didn't speak. Cold metal bit into her wrists, her apron still on, hands trembling, eyes blank, not with fear, not even shame, just silence. In the harsh gray walls of the police precinct, Isabella Vastra sat silent, cuffed to a bench. Her mind raced, not with fear, but with strategy. Then the door opened. A tall black woman in a tailored charcoal suit walked in like a storm in heels, a power suit with eyes like judgment and voice like thunder, confident, beautiful, fearless. Her name was Sylvia Blake, an attorney at law. It happened in her presence. "I'll be representing her," she said. The room fell silent. "You're not a thief," she said afterward. "You don't even know how to lie. That's rare." Isabella Vastra looked up at her. There was fire in her voice for the first time in years. "I want to be like you, a lawyer." Sylvia paused, then nodded. "Then never steal, study hard, and stay with me. But my house won't be easy. I have crazy teenagers." She wasn't lying. Sylvia had children. 2 teenagers, spoiled, sharp-tongued, cruel. They weren't so welcoming. They mocked Isabella Vastra, used her kindness, blamed her for things she didn't do. The clock struck 7 p.m. Sylvia wasn't home yet. Isabella Vastra was clearing the dining table, her uniform apron still around her waist. The kids, Jordan, 17, and Mila, 15, were lounging on the couch, bored and irritated. Jordan sipped juice from a glass, watching her. "You know, Mila," he said with a smirk, "Mom says Isabella Vastra's gonna be a lawyer someday. Big dreams for a dish girl." Mila scoffed. "She's not even from here. She talks like she's from space." "Maybe she is," Jordan added sarcastically. "Hey, Bella, you an alien?" Isabella Vastra said nothing. She continued picking up plates methodically. "Ignore. Stay silent. Stay invisible." That's how she'd survived before. Mila stood up, walked to the kitchen island, picked up the newly washed glasses Isabella Vastra had just dried. Crash! A wine glass shattered across the tiles. Jagged edges spread like stars across a black sky. Isabella Vastra turned sharply, heart pounding. Mila gasped dramatically. "OMG, Bella, what did you do?" Jordan stood too, face feigning shock. "Mom's gonna freak. That was part of the crystal set." Isabella Vastra whispered, "I didn't." "Shh," Mila hissed. "You did. And you're gonna clean it." Isabella Vastra crouched silently, picking up the shards with trembling fingers. One slice caught her palm. Blood. She flinched. Jordan smiled. "Careful, Bella. Bleeding doesn't look good on your resume." Mila grabbed a mop and slammed it down beside her. "Clean it. Now." Isabella Vastra wrapped the cut in a paper towel. She cleaned the blood and glass silently. Not a word. Not a tear. She thought within her, "You think pain breaks me? I was born into a house that didn't want me, raised in shadows, survived a moon that erased names. You two are amateurs." As she finished cleaning, Sylvia's car pulled up in the driveway. Jordan and Mila immediately turned on the TV and acted normal. Isabella Vastra stood, wiped her hands, and smiled faintly. Her blood was still fresh beneath the towel. Sylvia walked in. "Evening, Isabella. Kids behaving?" Isabella Vastra nodded. "Perfectly, ma'am." They made Isabella Vastra's life a maze of emotional traps, lies, manipulation, punishment. But she never broke, because pain was familiar. "Pain sharpens the blade," she whispered to herself at night. She studied, she worked, she endured, she served quietly, took care of the house, ate last, studied hard. By 25, she graduated from Harvard Law, one of the greatest legal institutions in the universe. The girl who washed dishes now knew the law of Earth better than most humans ever would. Her professors called her relentless. Her classmates never really knew her. To them, she was just a quiet, serious Earth girl. Only she knew the truth. She worked 2 years in a top firm in Manhattan, but she still wore her past like invisible armor. Then one night, it happened. The news blared on TV. Visitors from Velmara land in D.C. Velmaran diplomatic ships, shining and ancient, hovered above Washington, D.C., and among them, Lord Velmari, her father, was standing among the dignitaries, alive, glorious, surrounded by Earth officials. But his eyes swept past the screen like she didn't exist. She stood, her hands trembling, her mouth dry. He wouldn't recognize her even if he sees her. He wouldn't. She wasn't Elysera Velmari anymore. She was Isabella Vastra, Earth girl, lawyer, invisible heir. And the war between past and present was just beginning. 1 year later, Isabella decided to return to Velmara. She came to serve in her father's law firm, where he met Lady Corva. Right under their nose, she plots to expose the wicked. 6 years she served, growing through the ranks. It had been 20 years since her escape from fire. Isabella Vastra adjusted the lapel of her sleek obsidian suit. Her nameplate read, "I Vastra," a carefully crafted alias. She had worked quietly within the law firm, rising swiftly with surgical brilliance and impeccable courtroom instincts. Now, she stood outside the executive meeting room. Inside waited Lord Velmari, supreme strategist of Velmara, and his wife, Lady Corva, her stepmother. Now has 3 children. Isabella Vastra inhaled deeply. She entered. "Lord Velmari," she said with a formal nod. "Lady Corva." He barely looked up, engrossed in documents, but Corva did. The woman's gaze locked on Isabella Vastra like a hawk, sharp, calculating, too still. "You always remind me of someone," Corva said, her tone measured. "A girl from long ago." Isabella Vastra smiled coolly. "I get that a lot." Corva tilted her head. "Not just your face. It's your mannerism. That pause before you speak. That slight dip of the head." She leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "You've said that before." Isabella Vastra's breath caught, heart stuttering beneath her calm exterior. Corva stared harder. "But I think I'm mistaken," she finally said, sitting back. "The girl I knew would be long dead." Isabella Vastra turned away to prepare the contracts. But in her mind, her childhood flashed. Running through the rose garden, her stepmother's voice laced with cruelty, the silent punishment chambers. She doesn't remember, but she senses me. I must be careful. She handed the contract to her father. "If you approve the merger, my team will file the protective clauses by moonrise." Lord Velmari nodded. "Efficient. I like that." Isabella Vastra stepped back, her heart pounding. I am Isabella Vastra, a stranger, a lawyer, a shadow, and I will guard you, Father, even if you never remember my name. Another day at Velmari Courts and Legal. Isabella Vastra sat at the front desk, quietly scanning through court files as she waited for yet another meeting with her superior, Lord Velmari himself. Once the trusted right hand of Lord Cadrith, leader of the Council of Continuity, Lord Velmari had since been replaced. His successor? None other than Lord Corael, his former legal partner and the very man he once recommended to the Council. Now, Lord Velmari focused primarily on diplomatic missions and high-stakes negotiations with rebel factions, often away from the court and deeper in the shadows of Velmara's fragile peace. The corridor was buzzing with quiet tension. A television mounted on the marble wall suddenly lit up with an urgent broadcast. "Breaking news from Velmara! Rebels surge in Shadowlands!" Everyone paused. Even the receptionist leaned closer to listen. The reporter's voice crackled through static as the image steadied on a battle-torn landscape. The dusky edges of Velmara's Shadowlands burning under the glow of artillery strikes and sonic grenades. In what many are calling the most organized uprising since the Fourth Eclipse Accord, a band of rebel fighters emerged from the Southlands. The striking element? They're following a woman, unknown, unnamed, but fierce. The screen flickered. A figure appeared, leading troops through smoke and desert heat. A woman in her early 30s, tall, resolute, wearing salvaged armor with ancient Velmaran sigils. Not royal, but something older. Her voice wasn't broadcasted, but the look in her eyes sent a chill down Isabella Vastra's spine. The rebel fighters cheered as they pushed forward. No one dared question her leadership. Isabella Vastra's body went rigid. She recognized the cadence of that woman's stride, her battle stance, even the way she gripped the blade, like someone who had been taught to believe in destiny. She whispered under her breath, "No, it can't be." She stared at the screen. She was just a girl. A forgotten memory. Isabella Vastra remembered clearly the day she whispered a new identity into the ear of a scared, amnesiac child. She had handed her a necklace, told her stories, named her Elysera Velmari, daughter of the great Lord Velmari, to protect herself from the truth. But Elysera Velmari, the true daughter of Lord Velmari, loyal until death. She had believed it, she had become it, and now, 20 years later, she was back, as a symbol of resistance against the Council. Isabella Vastra staggered slightly as realization bloomed in her mind. They're not following her because of blood. They're following her because of belief, because of the story I created. The screen snapped off. Silence returned to the lobby. From behind, Lady Corva entered, poised, sharp, unsettling as always. She had clearly caught the last moments of the broadcast. She glanced at Isabella Vastra. "Strange," she murmured. "There's something oddly familiar about the way that girl moved. Her eyes. It reminded me of someone." Her gaze narrowed at Isabella Vastra. "And you've always spoken as if you know more than you should, like someone raised in royal shadows." Isabella Vastra gave a careful smile. "Maybe I just read too much." But inside, panic and prophecy churned. She had buried a name in the sands of time. And now, that name had returned. Not through memory, but through belief turned into rebellion. Isabella Vastra sat quietly in the corner of the chamber, organizing evidence from a recent legal dispute. Her father stood with his back turned, discussing planetary politics with Lady Corva. The room shimmered with dim golden light. She wasn't supposed to speak. Just observe. But as Lord Velmari reached for his datapad and fumbled, she instinctively moved to catch it and said, "Careful. Your hands build empires, not bandages." The room froze. Lady Corva slowly turned. What did you just say? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Isabella Vastra blinked. Apologies. It's something my grandmother used to say. No, Corva interrupted. That phrase, your hands build empires, not bandages. That's not some random saying. That's what Lady Alani, Elysera's mother, used to say to Lord Velmari when he came back injured from the war front. Isabella Vastra's face remained neutral, but inside her blood turned to ice. Lady Corva stepped forward, eyes dark, mouth tightening. Where did you hear that? Isabella Vastra swallowed, then smiled. Perhaps your grace is mistaken. I read it in one of Lord Velmari's old case notes. But Corva didn't look convinced. You know, I once heard a little girl say that in this very palace, just before she vanished. She turned to Lord Velmari. Don't you find it strange that our new lawyer carries the same pauses, the same words, the same ghost as the daughter we lost? Lord Velmari raised an eyebrow but dismissed it. You see ghosts where there are shadows, Corva. Let the girl work. He faced Isabella and said, hand me the file. Corva didn't answer. Her eyes never left Isabella Vastra. And then, softly, like a blade sliding through silk, she whispered to herself, Elysera Velmari, Isabella Vastra. Her eyes widened.